In the heart of Dixie where the eagles fly, land of the brave where the bullets don't lie. We fought for our freedom with guns by our side. Red, white, and blue, our southern pride. Raise the flag high, let freedom ring from the rolling mountains to the flatlands. We sing, no one can take our rights. Our Second Amendment will defend our land. With every bullet we stand. We were born in the USA, land of the free, with guns in our hands. We'll forever be Southern blood runs deep through our veins. We'll stand tall for America till the end of our days.
Well, hey there. Good evening, all. I'm Sully, and welcome to the Gun Club. Got a few stories we're going to cover tonight. There's been a lot of legal eagling and legal updates and case decisions that have been coming out, and we really got to sort of try to figure these out. Yeah, I don't know. I'm Sully. I'm not Sally. I'm not sure who Sally is. Nothing against her, but we'll see how this plays out. Some of the stuff that's coming out is really interesting in that it's going to involve the federal government as well as the president, the attorney general, Department of Justice. Some of the stuff is coming out of federal courts. We've just got a lot has gone on. A lot has dropped in the last week. Sorry, I've been a little bit behind the times. One of the big ones that has come out. This is the decision in the Vanderstock case. If you're not familiar with the Vanderstock case, very simply, it is where the ATF came up and changed the rules midstream. They came up and there was always a definition of what a firearm was. And a piece of metal was not a firearm. When it got manufactured to a certain point, roughly 80%, it beyond that point was a firearm. So you could go out and buy an 80% frame, receiver, things like that were partially completed, but not completed all the way, and you could build it from there. A lot of people did this. Hobbyists could do this. People just wanted to tinker with guns, learn how they work, things like that. You never know how well, you know something until you try to actually build one. Well, because they were 80% finished, they were not a gun. They were raw materials still. In the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the ATF, in the eyes of everyone who knew, you could buy 80%ers. And that was normal. That was acceptable. Well, the federal government, the ATF, decided to change the rule and say that anything that could be readily converted to a firearm would now be considered a firearm. Thus, in order to buy that same 80%er that you could legally buy last week, you now would have to have a serial number on it, go through a background check, etc., which you would not have had to do under the old rule. Now, this rule, I understand, their concept was they're trying to deal with those spooky ghost guns. Yeah, okay, whatever. The thing was, were ghost guns that much of a problem? Maybe, not really. The thing also required, there were a lot of stipulations. If you bought one of these 80%ers, if I bought one, I could not finish it and sell it. Couldn't do any work on it and sell it because then I would be a manufacturer. I would have taken a raw material, made it into a firearm, and sold a firearm. Yeah, I don't have a federal license to manufacture firearms, so that'd be illegal. I could not let someone else use my tools to work on theirs. I could not work on someone else's for them because, again, that would be building a firearm for them, which I'd be illegal to do. But if I wanted to do it personally for me, so I had it, I could never sell it. Okay, fair enough. Well, they changed that, and changing it, it basically put a couple of companies out of business that made the kits that you would be able to do. Polymer 80 was one of them. They would sell polymer frames that were to this 80% spec that was a nationally accepted standard for years. You could buy that, you could buy tools, materials from them, and you could basically build your own pistol by learn to build by building your own. It was kind of cool. It was something that was on my project list, not really high up, but it was up there. I thought it would be kind of fun. Well, they changed it where anything that can be made into or readily converted into a firearm is now a firearm. So is a block of metal a firearm? How readily is readily converted? I mean, there had been a line in the sand, the 80% that everyone kind of knew. Now, there's no line in the sand. They've said they're not going to basically say a block of metal is a firearm or say a spool of filament for a 3D printer. That's not a firearm. But if you've got the right 3D printer and you've got the right software, pretty readily convertible. Is it? Where's they going to draw the line? What are they going to do? And this is a problem. Unfortunately, this case was ruled in the Supreme Court that the ATF's change in rules is acceptable. I feel this fails on a couple of cases, and it should have failed on a couple of cases. It was a very bad decision. Number one, the arbitrary and capricious nature of what's readily convertible. The law should be the law. It should be clear, easily understood. Imagine they put a speed limit outside. Don't go too fast. Define too fast. That's very subjective. It's not 55, 45, 35, 75. There's no number. Well, I think you were speeding. Why? Because it said don't go too fast. Well, I don't think I was going too fast. Well, the officer did, so you get a ticket. When it's a question of a speeding ticket, that's one thing. When it's a question of 10 years in federal jail, that needs to be pretty much line in the sand, and they didn't do it. They came out with this readily convertible rule. And unfortunately, 7-2, with all three of the Trump appointees, noticeably, voting for it. Yeah, Amy Coney, Kavanaugh, yeah, very disappointed. Very, very disappointed. Because you know what? If you look at this and you basically took a black and white line in the law, made it an ugly gray smudge in charcoal, and now it's going to have to be fixed at some point, and it's going to involve somebody catching a federal charge under a very gray area of law. So I think legally it's bad. Practically for the 2A, it's bad. If we go back to where the forefathers were, who do you think made the vast majority of firearms that were used in, I don't know, the American Revolution? People made their own. There was no licensing, there was no permitting, there was no ATF. So if you go back to the history and the text and tradition, when the Second Amendment was written, there was nothing about thou shalt not build thy own firearms at home. Everyone did it. It was very normal. So in Bruin analysis, I think it fails. And honestly, Chevron deference, where we talk about what they legally can do and how far legally they can go, fails. And of course, the practical side of it is it's taken what was a very easy black letter law and changed it into a train wreck. So that's a bad one. And we're going to start to revisit this back toward the end. I think it's really bad. There are some ways to fix it. 2 ways to fix it. Number one, we'd have to get a case that goes all the way through, goes all the way up, and makes it to the Supreme Court, and they change their mind. That's going to take a whole lot of time. It's going to take the case making it through the court. It's going to take them issuing a writ of cert to actually accept this case. Ooh, that could get really long and ugly to try to get to. So we don't like that. The other option, and this one I think has a lot more possibility, is the ATF, the same way they rewrote the rule to make it this screwy, could rewrite the rule to make it better. Cash, Dan, Pam, y'all listening? We've got Robert Leiter in there, the new chief counsel. This is something I think that team needs to sit around the tabletop and address. They can do it. They can fix this mess. and potentially undo the damage that the last administration did. Vanderstock was a case that's gone on for a long time, and to me, it makes no sense. Yes, I can see they're trying to play the old ghost guns are a bad thing. Got news for you. If you've got a 3D printer and the right kind of filament and the right software, they're printing them right now. The people who are wanting to do this and wanting to break this rule is, they can tap dance around it all day. So take that for what it is. Second one, and this is a really ugly case. This comes out of the 11th Circuit down in Florida. Now, Florida has a ban currently on sales of firearms, handguns specifically, to 18 to 20-year-olds. Now, 18 to 20-year-olds can carry, they just cannot purchase. Now, this was decided in the 11th Circuit. It was appealed up. They went through with it. Okay, fine. The problem is, the circuit brought it back to review their own decision. So the 11th Circuit group of 3 decided it and then said, wait a minute, we want to pull that back and review it again. They reviewed it en banc, which is basically the whole group of 11th Circuit, and they reviewed it and affirmed, yes, we got it right the first time. Now, this is totally a political situation, not a legal situation. And the reason I say that is, if you read the decision in the 11th Circuit, and this was basically an NRA case, the decision starts out with the narrative of how Nicholas Cruz went and bought a gun for shoot up Parkland, and he was under 21. So they basically went more into this is what happened in Parkland, and we need a law because of it, rather than this is a good interpretation based on the law. We're not really interpreting the law, and they basically, again, by opening the first paragraph of their decision, going in deep to the whole Parkland shooting and how he was under this age and how this happened, they basically said, well, because of this tragic event, we need a new law. Okay, I can see that, if that's what we're going to do. Because of every tragic event, we need a new law. Okay. That's not the way laws are supposed to be brought out. It's not supposed to be a knee-jerk reaction. While Parkland is a tragedy, if we could easily take the same situation, because of all the failures of law enforcement that led up to Parkland, we need law enforcement to be held more accountable. Because of all the failures of law enforcement that led up to Parkland, we need police officers and sheriff's deputies to be civilly liable for their stupidity. Yeah, wouldn't that be interesting? They've made a law basically because a tragedy happened. Well, anytime a tragedy happens, can we make a law for that? There'd be a lot of useless laws on the books. The next question is, let's take it from the other side. 18 to 20-year-olds. It says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Are 18 to 20-year-olds part of the people? Well, I guess that's a good question. Do they have First Amendment rights? If somebody told an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old who went out, and let's say the 18-year-old said something against the government, said that he thinks the orange man is an idiot, could the Secret Service pick him up and put him in jail? And he says, oh, I'm using my freedom of speech. Sorry, you don't have any of those Bill of Rights. You're under 21. We'd be up in arms. There would be protests in the street. How about 18 to 20-year-olds? Do they have a right to vote? Well, I mean, hang on, wait a minute. They're not members of the people. The court just said so. Every 18, 19, and 20-year-old, do they lose their freedom of speech until they're 21? No. Just their freedom to keep and bear arms. Is the Second Amendment a second-class right? Again, I look at so many of these laws and say, take what they're doing to the 2A or firearms rights and apply it to anything else in the Bill of Rights. I guess if they pick up an 18-year-old with drugs on him, and he says, "Look, you searched me illegally. Sorry, you're under 21. No rights against search and seizure. We don't have that. You don't get that till you're 21, kid." Yeah, I'd be the first one protesting. If we had, again, 18-year-old, they're going to put him out for cruel and unusual punishment. They decide they're going to beat him on the courthouse square for whatever he did. I'd be the first one protesting, saying, well, that's government way overstepping. They've got all those other rights in the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, but firearms, that Second Amendment is not a second-class right. It should be right up there with the rest of them. Apparently, for the purposes of that amendment, 18 to 20-year-olds don't count, but it counts for all the others. Pretty bad law, in my opinion. But if you're trying to come to a conclusion that guns are bad, you're going to justify it any way you can. And yes, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals and en banc, they basically, according to everything I've read, the general thing is they shit the bed. They knew what they wanted the decision to be when they went in the door, and they just tried to string together something and, can't even make sense of it. The other thing is, when they're looking at the text, history, and tradition of the laws in the country, they refuse to look at the militia acts. Yeah, newsflash. At one time, 18-year-olds were required to have and carry and purchase firearms for militia service. I guess 18-year-olds were part of the people then. And can an 18-year-old go sign his name on the dotted line and go overseas to God knows what hellhole and serve our country and write a check up to and including his life? Yeah, he can. So maybe there's just something a little bit sideways here. I don't know. But yeah, that one came out of the 11th Circuit out of Florida. Now, interestingly enough, and that came out fairly recently, we have a little bit of a split. Because on January 20th of this year, January 30th, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the federal government's handgun ban for adults 18 to 20 was unconstitutional. This came out in a case called Reese v. ATF, and ultimately, quote unquote, the text of the Second Amendment includes 18 to 20-year-old individuals among the people whose right to keep and bear arms is constitutionally protected. The federal government has presented scant evidence that 18 to 20-year-olds' firearm rights during the founding era were restricted in a similar manner to the contemporary federal handgun purchase ban. In sum, 18 U.S.C. 992 B sub 1, C sub 1, and their attendant regulations are unconstitutional in light of our nation's historic tradition of firearm regulation, the court said. Today's ruling is another critical FPC win against immoral and unconstitutional age-based gun ban. We look forward to restoring the Second Amendment rights of all peaceable adults throughout the United States, said FPC President Brandon Combs. Wait a minute. So, the Fifth Circuit says this crap's unconstitutional, doesn't fit the text, history, and tradition. The 11th Circuit, in a politically charged area, Florida, Parkland, says, but Nicholas Cruz did something at Parkland, and so the Constitution has changed. This is likely because of the difference in the fight between the circuits turns into what we call a circuit split, which is almost a guarantee that it ends up going to SCOTUS. Yeah, because one circuit says this, one circuit says that, and in the effort to iron things out, this is a very ripe situation to go up to SCOTUS. And I think Florida, if it does go to SCOTUS, is going to back down on theirs. Not Florida's 11th Circuit. Florida Department of Law Enforcement is going to back down and just go with it because, it doesn't quite make sense and they're realizing it. So, while it's bad, I get that the ruling in Florida, the 11th Circuit en banc, is bad. The Fifth Circuit comes out and says this, that forces the split. The silver lining in the cloud from Florida, it may force it to go to SCOTUS, which at that point would become nationwide. So that way, states like New York, California, or whatever, who may have various limits on what 18 to 20-year-olds can buy, yep, it'll get settled in SCOTUS and they'll be told, no, you can't do that anymore. So that could be really interesting. Okay, I see they'll appeal it. I'm sure, this will be appealed. Again, they've got the 11th Circuit going one way, the 5th going the other. So it can likely go to the Supremes, and we'll let the 9 wise men and women in Washington decide that. Let's just hope they shit the bed less than they did in the Vanderstock decision, because that 7-2 in Vanderstock is garbage. So there's our federal dramas that we have going on, and we have a lot of them going on. Another federal drama going on. There has been the Supreme Court arguments in the Mexico versus U.S. and Mexico versus Smith & Wesson case. And I've got a couple of just clips, not clips of it, but excerpts of it I want to read. And there's one, which is really interesting. The attorney for Mexico stated that because Smith & Wesson has made guns with Spanish-sounding names, that they were clearly designed for criminals. Yeah. I tried to find the exact names. I tried to go through the transcripts and I couldn't. But apparently there are some custom versions of Smith & Wessons that have various Hispanic-sounding names, and that these Spanish names were designed clearly for criminal use. So the defendant's attorney for Smith & Wesson came up and he said, the fact that you would consider that we're in Smith & Wesson's in our country that has, 10 to 15 million Hispanic individuals in our population, the fact that a firearm would have a name that is, sounds Hispanic in nature, and you would consider that to be for crimes, that's pretty disgusting, lady. The results on this one are not in yet. It's going to be interesting to read his response when he came up. The fact that just because something has a Hispanic sounding name, it sounds criminal, that's pretty disgusting. Yeah, racism. Exactly. You've got to love that. Oh, let's see. What else do we have? This one is out of Colorado, and it's going to be my last bad news of the night. And then we're going to get into a little bit of good news, because we've got to have some good news. I promise you there's some in here somewhere. Senate Bill 3 passed in Colorado. I don't know whether Governor Jared Polis has signed it into effect yet. It had passed the House. They made some amendments in the Senate. It passed the Senate. It's gone back to the House for reconciliation in Colorado, and then it's going to be going up to the governor's desk to be signed. This is the biggest, most sweeping state-level gun regulation that's happened in years. It is going to put a ban on all semi-automatic firearms with detachable magazines, i.e. the standard, the removable magazines, unless you've got to first go to your local sheriff and get a permit. You then have to go through the park ranger service, I believe, and take a 12-hour safety training class. Now, that can be cut down to 4 hours if you also have taken a hunter safety education class. If you don't have that class, then you've got to have the 12-hour class. You then must renew this credential every 5 years. Now, the question comes in, who's paying for all this? Doesn't really figure it out yet. Number 2, who's qualified to offer all this? Next one, when you start doing it, what's the timeline? Remember, a right delayed is a right denied. I want you to look right now, and again, I'm very, very practical purpose, very practically oriented. I want you to tell somebody in Colorado who has left her abusive boyfriend or his abusive boyfriend or his abusive girlfriend or whatever the case may be. I don't give a damn. And they have left their abusive ex and they want to get a firearm because the ex is texting. Maybe the ex has put a tracker on their car or an Apple tag, something like that. Maybe there's all sorts of weird domestic stuff going on and everything else. And I want you to tell that person, okay, now you need to go to the sheriff and go through all the paperwork and fingerprints and background check. And then you get to go to, over at the park ranger, hey, boo boo, let's go check the park ranger, see if we can get our gun. Go through, sign up, get to a 12-hour class. Who knows who's paying for all this? Maybe you just have to pay for it. Because, why should you have a right to defend yourself? Then you go through all this, and that's crazy. I have, in my experience, on multiple occasions, dealt with ladies who have been in really bad situations. They get out of a bad situation, and they've got the text messages to show what he's saying and what he's willing to do. And that, yes, he will show up at their work. And I had a friend of mine whose daughter broke up with a scumbag, and mom at the time was working nights in an ER. And this young lady was like 16, 17 years old. And she's texting mom from the little restaurant she works at saying, he and his buddies are outside in the parking lot. What do I do? Yeah. Now, mom couldn't do nothing. The 17-year-old couldn't do nothing. Law enforcement was called. Law enforcement drove up, told them, they're not doing anything, they need to leave. They kept cruising around the block. His buddy sat at the gas station across the street. We knew. So, yeah, a couple people drove up there in a white truck and picked up the young lady, and someone else got in her car and was driving her car home, although they were followed. And it was kind of interesting because when they got followed and the boyfriend pulled up on them, when he walked up to the window, he saw something he didn't quite expect. Yeah. We can guarantee you it was not the young lady in the car. So, my point is your right to defend yourself. If you want to go target shooting, go target shooting. If you want to go hunting for whatever critters and creatures and whatever, that's your thing. Never really did much for me. But the right to be able to defend yourself, the ultimate use of force equalizer for your safety, for your family's safety, that should not be a right that you have to go ask the government for permission for. Do you have to go talk to your local sheriff's department and ask for your right to free speech? Do you have to go take a class on civics? Oh, you've got to go take our 12-hour civics class or no voting for you. Really? That'd be kind of fun to watch. Once again, the Second Amendment is being treated like a second-class right. And it's really, really bad. And that is, again, at least I'm ideologically consistent. I don't care which side of the spectrum you fall on or which side of the what you are. Guess what? I have a major problem when you see people turning around and saying they can't defend themselves. You can't exercise your constitutional rights because of what? This stuff. Yeah. Alrighty. What else do we have? That's about, I think, the worst of the bad news. And it's really gotten to be kind of interesting just because of, as we go through all this, you look and say, okay, what can go any better? We got to have some wins somewhere. And this one is actually, I think, going to be a really interesting win. I'm trying to pull this one up here. Pam Bondi. She has been a little bit, shall we say, vocal in some of the recent issues with firearms. She has come out and things like that are going on, and we're seeing her make a few statements and work from there. First off, she has come out and said that there is a potential for her to investigate and or file suit against various states. She has announced an investigation into Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. States that, honestly, she's looking for a pattern and practice of them delaying or denying people's 2A rights. What would that mean? Basically, they are so difficult in LA County, California to get a concealed carry permit. She is now conducting an investigation to see if there's a pattern or practice of them being difficult to exercise your 2A rights. Damn. Wait a minute. She is going after one of the anti-gun meccas, LA County. This could be a big win. We also know that with the Colorado laws, with all the crazy stuff they do that I just talked about, we know Rocky Mountain Gun Owners is already warming up the lawsuit printers. We know NAGR, FPC, GOA are already warming up the lawsuit printers. Guess what? If she comes in, and again, as an amicus brief, comes in on their side, brings resources from the DOJ, said, we think that the Colorado law is violating people's federal civil rights, and they come in on the side of the 2A crew, that could be a nice win. If she's willing to go after some of these entities and some of these states that are problematic, that would be great. She seems to be. I don't know how far it's willing to go. She, March 28th, Trump wrote out an executive order that established a task force in D.C. to increase the speed and lower the cost of getting carry permits in D.C. Again, a mecca of anti-gun sentiment, gun control, red tape, they'll make you run through peanut butter for an hour to get your permits. Guess what? If Trump is coming out with an executive order and a committee to say, fix that, get rid of the excessive costs and the time, that could be big. Honestly, the DOJ doesn't pass a lot of these laws. What the DOJ can do is they can come in and enforce civil rights law, much in the same way as if your city, state, township, whatever, said, okay, no kids of XYZ race are allowed to go to these schools. Well, remember, that happened many years ago back in, the Deep South. What happened? The feds came in and said, we're going to enforce the civil rights for this child. And that's how schools were desegregated, with the feds enforcing civil rights. They're now stating and coming out that it appears some of the states are infringing on civil rights. Thus, she may be a 2A warrior across the board. I'm not saying she's perfect. I never have said she's perfect. Yes, she crapped the bed on the Epstein files. And I know everyone is worried about the Epstein files. Look, I will say it right now. If we go a year and I never hear another damn thing about Epstein, Ghislaine, the island, or whatever else, but she's out there doing battle for the 2A, and she's got her deputies or her people underneath her or her team helping with all these federal lawsuits, helping with all these statewide civil rights suits, helping to protect our country's 2A rights in all these unfriendly environments, Colorado, California, New York City, etc. I'll give her a gold star. I don't care. Because look, I know everyone wants the other one and it's sensational, but she can be a whole lot more sensational battling for our 2A rights and keeping these commie mommies and these gun grabbers on their heels than she can, doing anything with Ghislaine and idiot boy who didn't hang himself. Yes, Ghislaine, exactly. Yeah, right now you got one who's dead. We think maybe, I don't know. One who's locked up in a hellhole prison. Really? They neither one of those two are bothering me tonight. You want to know what bothered me when I went to bed last night? What bothered me is thinking of my friends in Colorado. Now fortunately, if you already had all the firearms, you're grandfathered in. But thinking about people like, Alicia, who's been on the channel, Boomstick Babe, Andrew Bronca, who moved out of Colorado because of this. He had no intention of moving, but he moved. Law of self-defense, Andrew Bronca. We're watching people literally have to flee these states as these totalitarian gun banning, gun grabbing regimes come in to make things absolutely so bad for them. So yeah, to me, as much as the other one is sensational and it's the big sex scandal, and I'm sure there could be lots of wonderful politicians there, but you know, I've got bigger fish to fry, folks. I really do. And they're gonna go through and see what we can come up with, but you know, we have to have a little bit of happy time here. And so we're going to, let's see, I've got one. This is, if you're not familiar, a gentleman by the name of, I think his name is JD or something. I don't know. I understand that at some point he did something or other with the Marine Corps. I believe JD Vance. And he went out to one of the Marine shooting ranges and had a little fun. This is JD Vance playing. They got him a little patch going there and everything. This is him playing with a little toy. Yeah, I can deal with that. I can deal with that. That's, I like that in a vice president. Mm-hmm. But hopefully, again, at the simplest level, Bondi's over the DOJ. This whole Vanderstock thing, she can change on her typewriter tonight. Her, Cash, Dan, get a couple of technical experts in there, and we could fix that thing tonight. The ATF's regulations are not law. They're just what the ATF came up with. That's what the whole argument in the trial was about. So guess what? They've had this whole argument in the trial. Yeah, I will agree, man. At most certainly. But yeah, honestly, I'm surprised Don wasn't either. But they may do it again. Who knows? Then again, I'm sure JD has a lot more access to stuff, being that he was in the Corps for years. But when we're looking at the big scope of things, the Vanderstock ruling, the whole argument about it was that the ATF shouldn't be allowed to just willy-nilly change rules. And the court said, yeah, they can. So fine, now that we're in charge, change some of them damn rules. There's a whole bunch of them you can change. I know it's going to take, legislation to change anything in the NFA, but the 80% rules, hey, let's see, they could change that. What else could they change? They could change anything they wanted to about the braces, make them legit. Huh. Right. Oh, I will agree. And that's something I've been saying all along. Because so I don't know if you were here the night I said that, everyone was getting down on her because she had missed that deadline, and now she's doing like federal rights restoration and coming out with these statements, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is getting good. But so yeah, they can definitely do a lot more. I don't even think it was him. It's like, let's face it, I think we're finding out more and more that he was like put in his sarcophagus, fed inshore through his feeding tube, and someone else was driving the auto pen. Especially after Mike Johnson said that he went in there complaining about Biden banning the export of natural gas. And Mike Johnson went in there and said, look, this is really hurting people in my area that you've done all this stuff. And, he said, I didn't do that. I said, yeah, you did. He banned exporting U.S. natural gas and hurt a lot of industries in Mike Johnson's area. And when confronted with it, said he didn't do it. Who did? That's a whole nother story. I hope Cash and Dan get on that one. It may be Jill. It may be the Kami Lama. I like Kamala. I'm trying to see. I don't know if I still have my Kami Lama on here. Being that we're done with the election, I might have taken the Kami Lama off. Let's see here. I'm trying to dig through my files. We had a really interesting Kami Lama for a while. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I kind of got rid of her. But yeah, we still have this, so we can go with this one. You tell me. Are they related? I see some family resemblance there. I don't know. But yeah, definitely questionable at best. But yeah, I'm sure, they made a mess of a lot of things. So, speaking of Kamala, she's now still sort of sorting out her decision if she's going to run for governor of California. It will be interesting to see. And here is something they're trying to do to fight back against the Vanderstock ruling. I thought, again, you got to give GOA a lot of credit because GOA is out there and they're one of the big ones leading a lot of charges. Check this one.
Hey, this is Eric Pratt with Gun Owners of America, and I'm sure by now you've probably heard the news about the disappointing Supreme Court decision. I'm out here in front of the court right now. It was a 7-2 decision in the Vanderstock case. Look, this is just a reminder that we can't put all our eggs in one basket. We can't solely rely on the courts and the justices to save the Second Amendment. We do not live under a judicial supremacy. Under our system of government, 3 branches of government. Look, Article 6 of the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause. It's the Constitution and laws passed pursuant to the Constitution, which are the highest law of the land, as well as treaties. So all to say, we the people are the ones that can rein in our government. We're the ones that can put the heat on legislators. And so GOA is going to be doing that because Congress can overturn this. The president can reverse this, the rule that Biden passed. There's many other options, so don't be dispirited. This isn't the last word on it. Gun Owners of America is still going to be active on this. And so I just encourage you all, if you're watching this, please sign up for our legislative alerts, our action alerts. They're free. Just go to gunowners.org/subscribe. We're going to keep you in the fight on this. So I want to thank you for watching. Please stay tuned for further updates.
Okay. The Vanderstock case came down 7-2 in favor of the ruling. Now, the whole argument was, can the ATF randomly declare that this is a firearm and this is not? The old border of up to 80% was not a firearm, beyond 80% was. So what was the frame or receiver? You could buy the Polymer 80 frames, or there were other brands, but Polymer 80 is the one that sticks in my brain at the moment. That you could buy it pre 80%, no background check, no serial, no nothing. You could finish it personally for yourself. You couldn't sell it, you couldn't share it, you couldn't distribute it, but you could do it as a personal hobby project, totally legit. You can buy kits to make hobby airplanes. You can buy kits. I made hobby radios when I was growing up. The old Heath kit. Yeah, I'm that old. Anyway, they came out 7-2 and basically said that the new version of the ATFs, anything that can be readily converted into a firearm is a firearm. Well, yes, exactly. So if anything can be converted is a firearm, what can be converted? Folks, I got news for you. I could show you plans right now in various books I've had in my career. I could go to Lowe's and I could walk out of there with something capable of discharging 12 gauge slugs. Yeah, and Lowe's is only open till 10 o'clock. It's 9:30 my time, so yeah, it would not be hard. To make improvised firearms, improvised munitions, few basic skills, folks, few basic skills. But the interesting thing about it, and Eric mentioned it a little bit in his video without going in depth, this started as the ATF rewrote the rule on what was a firearm. The ATF fought it in court. It went all the way up to SCOTUS through the Vanderstock decision. Who runs the ATF right now? I got news for you. It ain't Merrick. It ain't Chris Ray. It ain't any of these morons we've had. What was the guy's name? I can't think of his name. Yes. So what you're saying is my thermos is loaded? Yeah. And we all know that our pressure cookers should be loaded. But yeah, it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But yeah, I like a thermos, a brick, piece of wood, just about anything. Here's the thing, and I think the big one on that is there are the people out there who just want to be left alone who have some real fun skills. And we'll leave it at that because some of them, understand improvising, adapting, and overcoming. But getting back to Eric here, if Pam Bondi, the court has just said that they can rewrite it. Pam, rewrite it. Fix that problem. That's easy. That doesn't even have to go through Congress or anything else. It says the ATF can rewrite the regulations any which way they want. Start rewriting them. Congress, get out there. I think you can do a lot of damage to the NFA. Change that thing. Let my SBRs breathe, please. Let my SBRs breathe. Free the SBRs. The federal court system is one way of doing it. There are other ways. And, I think what we need to do is, when you can see what Pam has come up with, and this one, I love, the Justice Department will not stand by idly while states and localities infringe on the Second Amendment rights of ordinary law-abiding Americans. The Second Amendment is not a second-class right, and under my watch, DOJ will actively enforce the Second Amendment just like it actively enforces any other fundamental constitutional right. So, yeah, that one, I've reposted that up onto the Gun Club Twitter page if you're interested. Just that way, again, if you want to read that article, I put those up there because I think it's, big. Yes, we've got a couple of wins, a couple of great wins that I really love. On the other side of that coin, where do we go from here? What's our next step? We got one here as far as going after the, NFA and GCA stuff. Yes, I agree. And so I wouldn't even get to that point because, they're not illegal. I ain't playing. The GOA-backed Short Act has been introduced by Representative Clyde and Marshall to remove SBRs and SBS and AOWs from the NFA. Yeah. So when we're seeing stuff like this go on, I'll back that. There's a lot of people out there on our side. And if they can do this to stop harassing, you know, owners of short rifles today, it's the Short Act. I like it. So again, get out there supporting that. There's pushes to support national constitutional carry. There are some things going our side. We just have to keep the momentum going. And I think if I had one big thing that I'd really love to see in the next year and a half, if we can get up to 60 in the Senate, and I don't know if we can, but if we can get 60 that are at least all have R behind their name and are somewhat ideologically driven, we can fix a lot, because that would be the key to the NFA. I don't see the NFA or the GCA taking the hit, but on the other side of the coin, I see the NFA and GCA definitely, if we can get up to 60 ideologically driven, work from there. So that's kind of where I've got. Now I do have a little bit of happy news for you. And this one comes out of the great state of Arkansas, of all places. I haven't talked about Arkansas much, haven't heard much about them. What are they doing down there? Well, if you don't know, the governor of Arkansas is a young lady by the name of, don't call her a young lady, a lovely lady by the name of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who recently signed into law in Arkansas that all public and charter schools will be doing annual gun safety education for all grade levels. Now, it's going to be age appropriate based on, K through 12, but it will be required in all schools. I've been screaming for that for years. I have been screaming for that for years. Yeah, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Sarah Sanders. I believe daughter of Mike Huckabee. We're just going to go with that one. But someone, am I wrong? Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, let me see here. Yes. Yeah, yeah, definitely the daughter of Mike Huckabee. Let's see here if I can find this. There you are. That is her there. Sarah Huckabee Sanders. If you remember, she was actually in one of the press secretaries during Trump's first stint in the White House. She was the one that was attacked when she was out. Or I won't say attacked, but mobbed when she was out at a restaurant. And later, that was the one that Maxine Waters was later talking about. If you see any member of this administration out, you draw a crowd and you tell them they're not wanted. She was the one that it happened to first when all that stuff started. She was the one whose family got surrounded. And the Dems, appreciated it. So, and I go back when I was in 7th, 8th grade, well, 7th and up, it was optional to join the riflery team in our school. We had riflery. But I think it was 9th or 10th grade, we had mandatory gun safety somewhere in there. It was in the same time frame as when we had health class, where we learned how to, we learned about reading, writing, and arithmetic. That was that whole situation. Health class, 1 year it was like gun safety. 1 year it was like CPR, first aid stuff. All sorts of life skills they taught us in there. But yeah, K through 12. I've said for a long time, we sat there, and I mean, well, I was in New York City, but for a long, long time, we sat there, and I've said, look, when I was in school, we learned about stopping, dropping, and rolling every year, a couple times a year. Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll. Duck and cover under the desk. Go into the fallout shelter in the basement of the elementary school. Been there, done that. Got that T-shirt. Here's the deal: if gun stuff is so bad, we didn't really get the tornado drills in New York though. But yeah, we were more worried honestly about the nukes because we were right outside the city. We were 20 minutes. My hometown was 20 minutes from ground zero, so we were getting more in the we're going to get nuked. We had a Marine Defense Logistics Academy across the street from my elementary school, so it was kind of interesting neighborhood. But especially when things started getting crazy over in Lebanon and Beirut. But no, we learned stop, drop, and roll every year, and it was great. And I'm a firefighter. I'm all for that stuff. But you know what? I've said give me 3 hours per year in each one of the classes, and I have even offered to go volunteer my time to teach at the local schools. And I promise I can make it age appropriate. And you know what? We can do at the beginning. We'll deal with the K-12 or the K2, like 2 or 3. The stop, don't touch, go away, tell an adult. Yeah, we all know that. And then we'll get talking a little bit further up. And we'll go all the way through. And then, fill out the permission slips and let's take the 11th and 12th graders out on the range. The 11th graders can play with 22s, and the 12th graders, we'll get them handguns. I'm good with it. Why not? I mean, we won't put like switches on them or whatever, but we'll keep it reasonable. But, yeah. So, yes, that is out of Arkansas. Big win, in my opinion, because it's showing all the talk about, kids and guns and guns and kids and kids and guns. I agree. There's a problem. But the problem's not with the guns. How about the problems with the kids? It's, I'm sure looking at Carnal here in the background, I'm pretty sure, when you were going to school, people used to have their guns in their trucks, guns in their vehicles going to school. When I was going back and forth for riflery, I couldn't ride the bus with my rifle in a case. I couldn't ride the bus those days. I had to get a ride. Yeah. And then mom would drop me off, or dad would drop me off, and I'd walk in with a rifle in a case. And I'd take it to the locker. The riflery coach had a locker in his classroom, and then he would carry them downstairs to the range in the basement of the school. Usually at different times of the day when he was going down. But having the gun locker in his classroom saved him from having to run up and down stairs all the time. Oh, wow, trombone. Yeah. Mel can tell us. I think Mel is in the chat. She'll tell us about her times at band camp. I've never really, well, I played with the trombone a little bit, but never really got into it. I tried to 2 or 3 different instruments in band. Never really did much of anything. But Mel was in chorus. Okay, she never had that one time at band camp. But yeah, I was never in band camp. I was always at football camp or hockey camp. But again, we're at this point. If we can win some of this stuff, and again, I think right now the courts are going bonkers. And I will also say this, and here is your amazing hypothetical of the day. If a single lower level federal district court judge can, by one stroke of the pen, absolutely stop all the deportations, could one single lower level federal district court judge say that all of these states' gun laws are illegal? What? He couldn't do that. Oh, really? If we can have one of them, basically, you know, stop the president that way, I think, imagine one judge out of Texas coming up and saying, yeah, I think all of California gun laws are illegal. And New York's too. They all infringe on the Second Amendment. So, yeah, open carry, no permits, no nothing, constitutional carry for the following states. Now that would be fun. Because again, what would they do? Go against the courts? Like, yeah. Oh, I agree. Those judges are out of their minds. I agree. The judges fighting Trump are out of their minds and they're totally overstepping. I've always been the believer in once you tell me what the rules are, I'll play by them. I will, play by a lot of the rules. Well, I'm not going to say I've lost respect for the DOJ. I think the DOJ is trying to do right now. And from that standpoint, they're fighting a battle. We have to realize that one problem is a lot of the citizenry is not as well informed as we are, and their vote counts as much as ours. I mean, let's face it, you watch some of these videos where they go out and they're interviewing the man or woman on the street, and they say, what are the three branches of government? And they're like, solid, liquid, and gas. Well, I guess under Joe they were right. But anyway, what are we dealing with on that? We've got people who don't understand and people passing laws who don't understand. That's what I've said all along. Get some technical experts in there to help Pam, to help Cash. And I mean, Dan's probably pretty good, but again, if he's got some questions, boom. Let's see. But what is right from their perspective? Are you talking about the DOJ or the judges, or I'm sort of questioning on that one. Like I said, I love Pam's statement, and that really says a lot as far as, she's not going to allow the Second Amendment to be a second-class right, and she's going to look into all these states, and she's already investigating LA. I was like, ouch, here we go. When the Department of Justice announces a Second Amendment investigation into LA, it's like, ouch, we know this is going to get fun fast because their pattern of practices, definitely going to be interesting. We're watching Pam at the DOJ is probably our best weapon against this stuff right now because some of the judges, they don't know, they don't understand. Let's see. What's this one? This is Eric Pratt. And I love sharing these GOA videos because majority of code US codes agreed. Agreed. Very agreed. Yeah. And I hate to say it, that's why so much of the budgeting was done. That's why we're in that shit show we're in right now with the budget. But this is really fun watching Eric Pratt and this senator have a little chat.
Well, hey, everybody. I am here today with Senator Marshall of Kansas, and it is a real pleasure to be here with you and meet you. And I'm really excited about the work that you've done in pushing the SHORT Act. Of course, Congress, people in Washington love acronyms. So, maybe if you could just let people know what the SHORT Act stands for and then just what your bill does, because I know this has been a real passion for you.
Well, Eric, it's great to be with you, and I appreciate you and your organization's support. Something like what we're working on, like the SHORT Act, will never become law without your members actually reaching out to their senators. If there's one thing they remember today is to reach out to your senator or your House members as well, of course, is about the Short Act. But the Short Act is really protecting your constitutional right to a short-barreled rifle. And I think it's just important to pause and describe why the Second Amendment is so important to us and why this law or this bill is very important as well. But I'm not the first person to say this, but I believe with all my heart that the Founding Fathers wrote the Second Amendment to protect our First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
And we've seen overreach by the executive branch under the Joe Biden administration, and before him, President Obama. My dad said President Obama was the best gun salesman we've ever had. But right. Joe Biden tried. Joe Biden tried as well. But we never dreamed that we would have a White House work so hard against our Second Amendment rights. And I'm standing right there beside you in your organization. So thanks for putting wind beneath ourselves. I want to talk about these short-barreled rifles just for a second. I think what some of the lawmakers up here in Washington don't understand is we don't have a police officer at every corner where I live in rural America. Most of our counties are 60 miles high and 60 miles across. Many times of the day, there's one or two sheriff's officers. And we need some type of deterrent. Mm-hmm. And whether it's the meth heads or the crack heads or other people wanting to steal copper is very valuable. So they're out there stealing copper, or maybe they're out there trying to steal anhydrous ammonia to make their meth. But my farmers and ranchers need to be able to defend themselves. We cannot depend upon the police, the sheriff's officer's case getting there in time. And I think there's other places in the country where people just feel like the law enforcement can't get there soon enough. We have hundreds of thousands of violent, illegal criminals that have been led in this country by Joe Biden. And I think more than ever, Americans want to be able to defend themselves. And I think the short-barreled rifle is the weapon of choice that many, many, especially women, would choose. One other point about this legislation. Basically, the Biden administration wanted to make any type of using a pistol brace, they wanted to call this a short-barreled rifle. I think of my veterans who no longer could hold a pistol by themselves, but with the help of this pistol brace, that they can shoot a pistol again. And I think that's a real important issue as well. So this is simple legislation. It would protect your constitutional right to use a pistol brace as well as protect your right to a short-barreled rifle.
So what do you think are the prospects for your legislation in this Senate?
Yeah, it's a really tough uphill battle. In the Senate, it takes 60 senators to pass most any legislation, especially a legislation like this. So our challenge is to find 7 Democrat senators that would vote yes on this. And if any of your members live in a state with with one of those potential candidates that might vote for something like this, maybe the independents would. I don't know. I think it could pass on the House side. We have a slim majority there. It just takes 50% on the House side, but on the Senate side, it takes 60. And it'll be a tough hurdle. But the only chance we got is if your members engage and start reaching out to their members. And I think some education would be helpful. I think if you could educate those members and reach out to their staff. You don't have to talk to the congressman or the senator. Get to know their staff and talk to them. Well, what is a short-barreled rifle, and what is a pistol brace? And talk to them like I did, explaining why this short-barreled rifle would be the weapon of choice. Probably don't use the word weapon. The best firearm to protect yourselves in rural America.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy for people. And you hear what Senator Marshall's saying. It is going to be an uphill battle in the Senate. So it's really important for you as the ones who vote for senators to contact them and let them know, and certainly getting co-sponsors to your legislation, that's an important part of the process as well. So I want to encourage you to contact your senators, and you'll have the phone number there on the screen, as well as alerts that you can get from our website to contact your senators and urge them to co-sponsor the Short Act, which has been sponsored, the chief sponsor, Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas. Is there anything else that you'd like to encourage?
There is,
folks?
Eric. There is one more thing I want to talk about. we do a lot of work to help people execute their Second Amendment rights. So our office staff is really specialized. When you're going through a gun permitting rule, the suppressors is what comes to mind. You know, the Biden administration made it almost impossible to get a suppressor. Is that not true for your members? So we have figured out ways to get that through the process. We have one young man, basically all he does is making sure that people are able to get access to their constitutional rights, and works with the local gun store owners in executing that as well. So folks could go to marshall.senate.gov and you could email us, and then think about who where you'd like to purchase that suppressor from. Maybe get them to email us, and we could walk that person through and maybe contact that senator's office to help push it through as well. So marshall.senate.gov.
And so is that just for people in Kansas or people anywhere?
Well, we may get swamped, but we'll see. If they could try emailing, and if we'll try to get back with them. I'd like to teach you other senators' offices on how to do it.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for taking the lead on this fight. It's so important. Thank you for all you're doing.
You bet. Eric, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, hey, everybody. I am here today with Senator.
Alrighty. There's a little bit on what he's trying to do with the short act. I saw Cardinal Nature was asking about a full read copy of it. I will get that downloaded. I will put it in our locals. If you're not familiar, we do have the locals page that we keep up. If you want to find out more information on anything or more information on classes, that kind of thing, what we're doing, our locals page is out there, and usually that's where I post a lot of documents. That is my, little document reservoir for things, because we can actually post things there very easily, very free, and they love having us over in locals. So we put it on there. Again, there's the link to locals right in the middle. You can check that out. If you're trying to contact me directly, the email is down there on the bottom. But I will get a copy of that short act either today or tomorrow, and I will get it over onto locals so you can check it out. And, again, Senator Marshall is trying to support this. I'm 100% in favor of it. I'm also reposting that video over onto our page. And so, again, more power to him. If he's going to take on the battle for us, we've got to fight with him. We've got to be on his team. I'm not saying that we've got to, come off the hip. If you can, great. If you can't. But otherwise, GOA is working hard on this one. So hopefully we can do some good with the right team and the right people doing the right things, trying to build something up there. All right. Let's see. What else did I have? We talked about Vanderstock. Again, that can be fixed. Bondi and Company can fix that quick. The 18, 20-year-old banned in one circuit, allowed in the other circuits, that's going to SCOTUS. Colorado, Rocky Mountain gun owners, they're going to be cranking out the lawsuits. We know, probably getting a lot of backup from the national organizations, GOA, SAG, NAGR, all those. And again, Pam Bondi coming out saying that she's going to open an investigation into states that are infringing on our rights. Damn, I'll take that. Because you know what? We need a little bit of help. And the people that are in power today because of the way we voted. And, they want the 2A community. They've got various, communities who all sort of came out and voted for them. And that's why they had the win in the Electoral College. That's why they got the majority at the federal level. That's why we have the House. That's why we have the Senate. Okay. Year and a half, they're going to want us to back their play. Well, guess what? It's time to back their play. Yeah, we're backing their play because when they need us again in a year and a half to keep that majority, yep, we're going to go ahead and we're going to be there. Yeah, I see. He's got Colonel over there. He's rumbling. Yeah, as we do love our rumble. We have to love rumble because, folks, there is some craziness going on out there. I saw this and I debated sharing this video, and I may get yelled at by the YouTubers for sharing this video, but on the other side of that coin, I think this one was a really interesting one. This one came out from our dear friends over at Firearm Videos. It was originally done by Louder with Crowder. And I want you to watch this because he just basically bakes this young lady's mind. And it's really fun to watch. You know, Crowder is a comedian, but Crowder is also pretty eloquent debater. Watch this one.
I have a disagreement with concealed carry laws. It could be used against you. Someone could grab it off your person, threaten you with it.
Someone could take your car and run you over with it. Does that mean that we can't sell you a car? Is it your contention that because something you can legally own could be used against you or someone else, the government has the right to tell you that you couldn't own said item?
The whole point of having a government is to trust the government to protect you.
No.
She obviously has not read many books. We're just going to say that. But okay, we'll keep going on.
No, that's not true.
As a woman, I feel very threatened walking around at night on my...
As a woman, she feels very threatened walking around at night on her own. Mel, since you are the woman of the chat, if you were going walking somewhere at night where you felt threatened, is there anything you could think that you might bring with you that would make you feel a little bit less threatened? Just maybe a little bit. And I'll give you a hint. It's not your dachshund, and it's not a rape whistle. It's louder than a rape whistle, and, well, it's actually smaller than your dachshund, so, you know. Okay, a Sully or a Smith & Wesson or both. Interesting choice, yeah. But again, if you don't have a Sully with you, you can carry a Smith & Wesson with you. It works very well, you know. But yeah, she, again, makes the statement that she feels, as a woman, unsafe walking around. And what do you think Crowder tells her? Yeah.
My own.
You should probably get a gun.
I have a disagreement.
I love that. Well, get a gun. Duh. What are you asking me to fix? Really? You really want me to fix this? You know, I thought it was great. You know. And this is Gothics. If you're not familiar with Gothics, she's a content creator on YouTube. She's also does some stuff with Jeremy over at The Quartering on his live shows. Let's see what she had to say up in Rhode Island. Because again, Rhode Island's a blue state. Let's see how she did.
Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I oppose this bill. Growing up in Pawtucket, a predominantly Black and Latino community, I once thought an assault weapons ban could curb gun violence. But as a gun owner today, I see this bill for what it is, a racist measure dressed up as compassion that's anything but. In dangerous neighborhoods where people who look like me often need to protect ourselves, this law would disproportionately lock us up for exercising that right. Before I ever stepped onto a range, I learned how to safely handle a firearm. So the notion that this is about safety is not only insulting, but laughable, because safety, let alone the sanctity of human life, is the last thing on a mass shooter's mind. And let me remind you, assault is a human action and a weapon is an inanimate object. Are you going to ban certain vehicles to stop drunk driving accidents? Of course not, because that would be stupid. So someone hell-bent on committing harm will find a way to do it legally or not. And most importantly, history shows us that criminals, including oppressive, tyrannical governments, aren't exactly moved by strongly worded letters. And if you think Americans are far removed from atrocities like that, clearly you don't understand the importance of the Second Amendment. I wonder if the victims of the Tiananmen Square massacre wish they had the ability to defend themselves. Supporters of these bans might mean well, but good intentions don't change outcomes. This bill will be gambling with the freedoms and liberties of Americans under the illusion of safety, and its Black and brown lives, the lives I assume many of you claim to value, especially during election season, these people will be hit the hardest. If you really want to end acts of violence, which by the way is impossible, you can at least be honest about what the real issue is. Hatred is a moral dilemma. It's a condition of the human heart. And truthfully, the fear of God would do more to fix this problem than any government policy would. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yeah, that's pretty based. She pretty much laid it out there. And again, we're not going to make the world safe. We're not going to make life safe. You know, said it really well. You know, you can't make everything safe. It doesn't make sense. And, you know, they're sitting here, well, how are we going to be safe? You know, yeah, and I threw a couple of little memes in here for Mel tonight. Just, I know she's had kind of a stressful week so far. It's only Monday and she's having a rough day. So we'll see if we can't give her a meme to make her smile. How about this one? Yeah, it's one of my favorites. And well, of course, we've always got this one here. Americans own 46% of the world's 1 billion guns. And Cat turns up there. Come on, people. We can do better. Get your shit together. So, yeah, definitely need to bring your A game. And if you want to know what's going on in these cities, I want you to look at these individuals here and tell me how many of the people involved in this chaos, fiasco, mess look like your average law-abiding citizens, your NRA members, or anything like that.
Stop lying, bro. Tell Bob the truth, bro. Oh, you.
Okay, so we got Blue Jacket arguing with Black Jacket here. They're apparently not getting along real well. I'm not sure I quite understand what they're saying, but we'll see.
Oh, you. What? 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 You touching my hands with what? Stop playing, bro.
Stop playing, bro. Stop playing, bro. Yeah. If you see this kind of interaction going on your local metro sidewalk, you want to kind of get out of the line of fire because this can go a little bit sideways real quick. Black Jacket's coming back. And Black Jacket apparently is having some issues here today. Yeah, here it is, broad daylight, city street. You know, the young lady here in the pink, I think she's like, oh, damn, I picked the wrong day to walk down the street today. And again, I want you to know this is going on in the city with some of the strictest, most arbitrarily restrictive gun laws around. Yeah, let's see how this works out. Yeah. Tell me gun control works. I'm not seeing it. That is in a very, very, very gun unfriendly neighborhood. And that is how it goes. But let's see here. Okay. Oh, I agree. Fear motivates these people. And it's an unnecessary fear. It's a irrational fear. It's honestly, there was a name for it at one point. I did it in one of the shows, but it's like gunophobia, really, truthfully. Hooplaphobia, I think, maybe. But, yeah. 1,100 at the vet this morning for 2 dogs. Oh, damn. I don't know what was going on with those 2 pooches, but yeah. Yeah. Yes, I don't debate that you will definitely cap someone if they, touch your dogs. But, again, this is another very well gun-controlled city. Gun control works in these cities. I want you to know that. Good gun laws keep ourselves safe in these cities. Look at these youngsters and you tell me, hooplaphobia, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. You're driving around in one of these cities, these wonderful blue bastions of freedom, and let's see what we see.
We play real. We got thieves. We got thieves right here. What y'all look?
Okay. You know what? Look at these kids. This is what's going on. This is real. Now, the people in these House and Senate bills and writing all this legislation, they don't get this stuff. They would not understand this. You know. I don't even want to blame the video games. I think it's some of these kids. I don't think they can even afford the video games. I think they learn it by watching the older kids. You know, let's face it. You always wanted to, yeah. When you were 10, you wanted to do what the 14-year-olds were doing. When you were 14, you wanted to do what the 18-year-olds were doing. Well, guess what? We've watched what the 25-year-olds have been doing, and it's just keep mutating down. And it is totally just part of the culture for these youngsters.
Why y'all out here like that, though? Bitch ass niggas, they 12 down now. Fuck, they ain't gonna come down there. They ain't gonna do shit on phone now. Fuck.
Yeah, this is culture. This is culture, ladies and gentlemen. And until we see it, and until we can honestly call it out for what it is, and that's the bad part of it. We've got to call it out for what it is. And, you know, I know that, you know, I don't necessarily do it to make fun of anyone. I don't do it, yeah. If you call them out for it, well, you're an ista, whatever, but I got news for you. This is just one of those things that to me is, you know, craziness. Because what do? Well, yeah, I agree. It's baby mamas and baby daddies, but I think no one's raising the kids. And that's the problem, because if no one's raising the kids at all, what are we getting? Well, what you see right there is, you know, these kids. You know, daddy ain't raising them. We've got so-and-so out there, you know, doing whatever with these kids, and they're doing nothing positive at all. And that's a problem. That's a real big problem, because the more we see kids like this doing stuff like this, it's dangerous. It's real dangerous. Yes, preteen gangsters killing people. Yeah, I agree. Alrighty. Now, I'm trying, and I'm going to do my best to try here, and I ask that you bear with me just a little bit while I try to go over and set up a raid to go over to our friend Bill over in Dozerville. I'm going to be wrapping here in a few minutes, and I've got to figure out how to send a raid over to his channel. If you're not familiar with Bill Dozer, he's actually really kind of cool. Super nice guy. He and I have chatted several times offline. We go back and forth. And he does more news, content, general stuff. Usually some snark, some fun, some interesting laughs for it. So let's see if I can find this here. Unfortunately, as we all know, as much as I love Rumble and I love the Rumble Studio, say it. Oh, is Crumpy live? Let me see if I can find him. If he's live on Rumble, I may just send a raid over to him. John Crump News, John Crump Live, Real John Crump. Yeah, let's see here. Is he live on one, or I'm trying to find out which channel he's on. He's got 2 or 3. Okay. Yeah, I see he's got his on here. Let me see. I will. Let's Let's see. I'm trying. We know that, trying to get stuff across doesn't always work the best. Let's see here. My content, my channels. Here's what I'm looking for. Okay. All right, I'm going to see if we can't do a raid over to Crumpy. And because John's definitely good people. I like his stuff, so I watch a lot of his stuff and I read a lot of his stuff. Very smart guy, and definitely a good guy in the 2A space. I don't know if that worked or not. Folks, can y'all see? Did I do that right? I'm trying here. Let's see. Somebody let me know in the chat if I did that right. Okay, you're still here. Well, okay. Any luck with that one? Did that one work? Just kind of wondering here. Let's see. One day I'm going to learn how to do these raids. I'll be invincible. It's going to be amazing. It'll be like really cool. Copy it. As the channel owner moderator. Okay. Nope. I tried. I don't know. Trying to figure this out. One raid per stream. Okay. I'm not even getting an error message from it, so that's kind of fun. Let's see. It doesn't look like it's working. Oh, well, I tried. Folks, it is what it is. Sorry about that. Y'all have a wonderful day. I will see you next time here in the Gun Club. Be smart. Be safe. Bye.